To the Point with Michael Williams.
Walt Disney's works touch millions of children every year, and his Disney World Resort helped transform the state of Florida. But how did he do it? And we're still benefiting from Marie Curie's medical discoveries, but that's just a part of how she influences our lives every day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Kelley Dunn, in for Michael Williams today, and we're going to do a little something different. We are with my favorite author, who's also a good friend of To the Point. Brad Meltzer is a New York Times best-selling author, of course known for his suspense novels. How many? What are we, 13?
A lot.
A lot. A lot. That's official, a lot. Also, though, the author, 2 nonfiction books, and 5 years ago began one of my favorite things that he does, a picture book biography series, Ordinary People Change the World. These are the most special books, if you've not looked at them, for your kids, for yourself, for that matter. And they feature stories about, yes, famous people, but Abraham Lincoln, Rosa Parks, Neil Armstrong, Martin Luther King Jr., to name just a few. Today we're talking about the latest in this series, Walt Disney and Marie Curie. And Brad, with 3 million copies, I think I read somewhere, 3 million copies in print.
I saw that number and I was
you're
like,
onto something.
I was like, my family's bought a lot of copies. Yes, the 3 million. When you hit the 3 million copy mark, I just love that people are, you know, they use our books now to build libraries.
Yeah.
For their kids, for their grandkids, for their nieces and their nephews. And I love that we get to do that.
Well, and actually, Disney, this has been, Walt is your #1 all-time bestseller, I understand.
Yeah, this is our biggest launch we've ever had. And, you know, I started this series, as you know, I wanted to give my kids better heroes to look up to.
Right.
Not people who are famous for being famous, but heroes of character and of kindness and of compassion. And in Walt Disney's case, hard work. And, you know, we all know Walt Disney. You know, I live in Florida, obviously, we all live in Florida here. And Walt Disney is a great American success story. Gave us the Magic Kingdom,
yes,
practically trademarked Happily Ever After, but his life is not a fairy tale. His life was actually really hard. And when Walt Disney was a little boy, his father didn't even like the fact that his son could draw so well. He was like, you know, where are you gonna make money doing that? It was his aunt who used to say to him, you know, Walt, here's a pad of paper. Keep drawing, you're really good at that. And when he gets a little older, he turns 21, Walt Disney starts his first ever movie company. It's a total failure, Kelley. It's a disaster. They tell him he's gonna have to declare bankruptcy.
Oh, geez.
He sleeps in his office. He has to take a bath once a week in a local train station. But I want my kids to know that if you chase a big dream, you may fail. But if you can get back up again, that's how you fly.
How do you find, because I'm telling you as an adult, these are so fun to read, how do you find all of these tidbits? And then, of course, it's your masterful way of weaving them through, and the illustrations are incredible. But how do you find all these little, tiny little things about these people's lives that you would never know if you didn't read this?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. In this case, we had the Walt Disney Archives behind us, and they love our mission. You know, the Disney people, we had worked with them on I Am Jim Henson, and we'd worked on Kermit the Frog with them, and they said they knew our mission. They knew our mission is to give kids better heroes. Are like, we're in.
Yeah.
So they gave us access to manuscripts no one's seen. They have stories that I'd never heard before. Even the creation of Mickey Mouse.
I know, Mortimer.
Right, so here's Walt Disney creates his first great idea. He says, I got an idea for a cartoon mouse. We're calling him Mortimer Mouse. And his wife was like, Mortimer? That's a horrible name. That's literally what she says. She says, it's a horrible name. And she says, why don't you call him, I don't know, Mickey? And that's how the world gets Mickey Mouse. And the first Mickey cartoon doesn't even sell. But again, I want my kids to know that whatever your dream is, you chase it, you chase it, you chase it. And that's what people are doing with these books, is they're giving those kids those real heroes to look up to.
Exactly. And, you know, I know Walt Disney World, especially for those of us from Florida, holds a special place in our hearts, in our childhoods.
It is our childhood,
It is our childhood. I remember going there the first year it opened, being from the Daytona Beach area.
I remember going when Epcot first opened, it was
absolutely
sold, and they said it's sold out on the highway. And I remember being like, what do you mean it's sold out? But those of us of a certain age remember those, the good old days.
And it's still a special thing for you and your children.
Yeah.
To this day, as it is, I know for mine, and they're adults, but I mean, I know for yours it is.
Yeah, so we have a tradition in my house, because I live here in South Florida,
right,
that once a year, and this is a tradition we've had since my kids were little, on the way to carpool, when I drive carpool in the morning, we drive past the school, and on the day, they don't know when it's gonna be, but once a year, I drive straight to Disney World. And I do it because, you know, I want my kids to know that every single day you could have magic in your life. Now, it also, of course, makes every ride to school the most exciting. They're like, Dad, we going to Disney today? We going to Disney today? But the truth is, again, I want them to feel that sense of magic, and that's what Walt Disney gives us, is he makes us feel like magic really exists.
And really, how did he capture that?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is it's really, what he did is he looked at his own childhood. What happened was when Walt Disney, we all know Disney World, but when Walt Disney was building it, he came up with the idea because he was at a merry-go-round. He used to take his daughters to a merry-go-round in California. And he'd look around and say, they're having fun, but there's nothing here for the adults to do. And there's nothing the family can do together. So he starts studying all these different places where amusement parks. He studies Gettysburg, where families used to go back then. And he says, you know what? I got a new idea for a park. We're going to have an old-timey place in there. We're going to have the future in there. We're going to have like a fantasy-type land. And they're like, what about today? We're going to have anything from today? He says, no. Nothing from today will be there. And he grew up in Missouri, in this little town with a main street, and they had a train that ran through the middle. And we all see Main Street USA when we go to Disney World. What you're really seeing is a version of Walt Disney's happy place where he grew up, where there was a main street and a train that ran down the middle. And I love that you'll never look, when you read this book, or now that I've told you the story, you'll never look at Main Street USA the way again, because what you're seeing is Walt Disney's happiest place.
Every time I'd walk down there as a kid, I'd always be like, I want to live right here. So I'll live up there.
Oh,
above
yeah,
the dress shop.
Well, and you know, I'll tell you some really good secrets is when you walk, when they first built Disney World, one of the things that everyone used to do is they used to walk over the flowers. They said, Mr. Disney, everyone's stomping over our flowers because they're all looking up at the castle, because everyone wants to see the castle. And they said, every day we got to replant the flowers. And Walt Disney said, no, 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 don't replant them. Pave where they're walking. They're telling you where they want to walk. Pave where they're walking. And I still use that today as one of my favorite pieces of advice to give people. It's like when you see what the audience wants, give them what they want. That was Walt Disney's great lesson. I use it today, you know, 50 years later.
Yeah, and it's been quite successful for you. That is for sure. Did anything surprise you about the Walt Disney story?
Yeah, you know, what surprised me is, one, how difficult it was, but also how much it was right there. When he's a little kid, he is drawing on the side of his house one day.
I read that.
Yeah,
I mean, I saw that in your
And he starts
book.
drawing, and his, you know, his relatives say, are you sure that's going to come off? He says, don't worry, it's going to come off. What he didn't tell them, and he didn't realize, is he was painting with tar. It never came off. It never, ever came off. And to me, I love the fact that when they moved out of his house in Missouri, that Walt Disney's great first piece of art was forever on the side of the house, right there. And to me, you know, right there you can show he was this creative, amazing person. And I think all of us want to see our heroes as these finished products, that, you know, Walt Disney's life was perfect in every way, and it wasn't always simple, but it wasn't. And I think that's what I appreciate most of all, is how hard he had to work for it and work for it and work for it.
Something that's unusual in this book is that you're actually in it.
Yeah.
So your children's hero, you're actually in the Walt Disney book. We have a shot. We'll put it up there. What was going on here? Tell us, how did this happen?
So I'm going to blow your mind here. So here's what you did not know, is that I'm in every single book.
You are?
I'm hidden. I'm the ball wears
You're
Waldo.
Waldo.
I'm literally the ball wears Waldo. But we hide in every book. Chris hides me. My kids are in every book. Chris, our artist, Eliopoulos, our amazing artist, his twins are in every book. We put a little 27 in every book, and we even hide Superman or Clark Kent in every single book. And all the kids around the country, they all know, they look for me, they find all the things we hide. And we also hide who the next hero is in every book. So when you read I Am Amelia Earhart, you can see Abraham Lincoln's hidden in there. When you read I Am Walt Disney, you can see that Marie Curie's hidden in there. When you read Marie Curie, you can secretly find who we're doing next. And kids find it before anybody.
Man.
So you just found the first one.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you the other thing we hid in there is I told Chris, for those who go to Disney World, there's a thing in Disney World called Hidden Mickeys. And a hidden Mickey is a circle with like mouse ears on it. And Disney World puts them all across the park. They'll be hidden on the sides of a trash can, in a tree, on the side of the tree. They'll put it on the ride. And the goal is that, you know, when you've been there for 95 times and you're there with your kids or your grandkids, you can still have something fun and find the hidden Mickeys. So I said to Chris, our artist, I said, we should put hidden Mickeys in I Am Walt Disney. And he said, dummy, I hit him on every page, you haven't found a single one. Which is basically a metaphor for my life, as how it works these days.
I'm going to reread it differently.
You are,
I love
every
it.
page.
And every one of them. Okay, I didn't even find where Marie Curie would be in the Walt Disney book.
I'll show you.
So yeah, you'll have to show me. Let's move on to I Am Marie Curie. Why Marie Curie?
So Marie Curie is a Nobel Prize winning scientist. And what I love about her story is when she's a little girl, the Russian government where she lives won't teach science to little girls. They said it's going to make them too powerful. And Kelley, they're absolutely right. And as she gets older, she says, I love science. She's 16 years old. She says, I want to be a scientist and change the world. By the time she reaches college, there's no university, no college that will teach science to women. So she finds what they call the flying university. And it doesn't physically fly, but metaphorically it does. And it's this place where secretly breaks the rules and teaches science to women. And what I love about her story is she wins the Nobel Prize. She wins a second Nobel Prize, right? The first one.
That a lot of people might not realize that she won too.
And not only that, is the first person, man or woman, to win 2 prizes in 2 different subjects.
That's right.
And what I love, though, is that throughout her whole life, everyone tells her she can't do things because she's a woman. You can't be a scientist because you're a woman. You can't study this because you're a woman. You can't go to the Nobel Prize. They didn't even want her speaking at her own Nobel Prize ceremony because she was a woman. But she never lets it stop her. And I want my daughter to know that lesson, and I want my sons to learn that lesson, that whatever your dream is, never let anyone stop you from chasing it.
She certainly was a great role model for her daughter, who then went on
to win a Nobel Prize. The only person, right, this mother and daughter, and the second woman to win it is her own daughter. It's like the big giant middle finger to the Nobel Prize committee. It really, she's just like, oh really, you don't want me coming to my own ceremony? Watch this. And again, they deny her over and over everything she wants. Never lets it stop her.
Unlike Walt Disney, who didn't have as much support from his father, she did.
Yeah.
And I loved reading this, that it really shows the influence of a parent on a child.
Yeah.
And believing in them and, you know, helping them fly. I thought it was an amazing story.
And, right, and that's the thing is we all think, especially back then, that there's no way that it's going to be a mother and a daughter. That's how it was back then. But it's her father, who was a science teacher, who says to his daughter when his wife passed away, "You can do this." Sends her math problems to do for fun, keeps her reading for fun. Even when she starts studying and starts getting to be that great scientist, he's the one who stays home and changes the baby's diaper when she has a child. And I love that he's just at that forefront of what a good father can actually be.
Of course, she discovered radioactivity, invented the first mobile X-ray unit.
Unbelievable.
I mean, what?
She invents the term when she's studying uranium, like we know what it is now, but she figured out then, she's like, it has these rays that come out of it, and she invents a new word for it, radioactivity. It comes from Marie Curie, a word we all know and we study and we use, and her protocols for dealing with radioactivity we still use in cancer patients today. Those things for her radiation treatments are still used by people who are undergoing cancer treatment now. And this is all traces back to this one girl who, when she's little, the government says, we're not teaching you anything.
Wow. What an inspiration to all the young girls of today.
And that, and that's been the best reaction. Now that the books have just come out, we start seeing reaction. Everyone, of course, they want to buy Walt Disney for their grandkids, and I love that. I love that they buy them. The one thing that I'm amazed by is how many people who have bought them and said, my kid is also obsessed, or my grandson or granddaughter's obsessed with Marie Curie. They love, little kids love the story of that bully who says, you can't do this, and Marie Curie, the girl who fights back and says, watch me.
Gives me chills. It really does. We've got so much more when we come back. From the pages of Brad's picture book biography series to the television screen, the new kids show he inspired on PBS. Still to come, a stunning story about Brad Meltzer and former President George Bush in a moment. Back with our special guest today, best-selling author Brad Meltzer. And Brad, I always love when you come to spend some time with us on To The Point, because we get some very personal stories of you with very big influential Americans, and often they're presidents. And I know a lot of them have, well, they read your books, your novels specifically, but they've also kind of guided you when you were kind of planning a novel at the time, right?
Yeah, so I've gotten letters from President Clinton and President George H.W. Bush, and even W himself. Like, they've just been very supportive. They've helped me do research, or they read the books. And listen, I like writing my thrillers, but there's nothing like getting a letter on White House stationery. They invited me to the White House to a private, luncheon there, and not in the big room, where there's only like in the president's private dining room, where the Secret Service can't go upstairs where the president lives. That's a cool day of work.
Yeah.
That's a good day. We'll take it.
You had a great relationship with Barbara Bush.
She was one of my favorite.
And we've talked about that before. And she had such a love of literacy.
Yeah, and then what happened, this is actually perfect, I'll tell you this story that I never get to tell, is when Barbara Bush passed away, we were honoring her and her work for literacy. And now President Bush, of course, was sick, and we knew he was really sick. And what I couldn't tell anyone at the time is no one knew that they were inviting President Bush's favorite authors to come read to him. And I got a call to come read to him. And we're in Kennebunkport, Maine, and it's my wife and I, and we get there. And they say to us, listen, he's gonna fall asleep after 5 minutes. Just, read the book and it's okay. And I'd be honored. I'll be there 5-10 minutes, great, you got it. And so we go into the office, and and we know what's happening at this point. Secret Service leave. It's myself, it's my wife, it's President Bush, and it's his service dog, Sully. And this is the end. And I brought a copy of a book I wrote called The First Conspiracy, about the secret plot to kill George Washington. It was an adult nonfiction book. President Clinton had given us a blurb on it. President Bush had given us a blurb on it. I brought a copy to read to him. And I walk into his office, and he has a stack of books on his desk, about half a dozen. And one of them is a copy of The First Conspiracy. And I say, sir, you want to read this copy? And I brought my own, and he says, because he can't speak at this point. He's so sick that he's just or And so the copy I brought the chapter where George Washington presents to his troops for the first time. He has the Declaration of Independence read to them. Very first time ever. So I'm reading this chapter. 5-10 minutes in, President Bush falls asleep. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna finish the chapter, say goodbye, and that's the end. And I get to those words, Kelley, those words we all know. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And in that moment, President Bush's eyes pop open, and he's locked on me, wide awake. And I get to the end of the chapter, it's like the words of the Declaration are his intravenous, like his lifeblood. And I get to the end of the chapter, and I say, sir, you want to read another chapter? I get to the end of that chapter. You want to read another one, sir? And another one, sir?
Oh
I get to the end of instead of being there for 10 minutes, I'm there for a full hour reading The First Conspiracy to him, reading the secret plot to kill George Washington, which is about the first president to, at that point, the oldest living president.
Wow.
Amazing moment. At the end of the hour, I say my goodbyes to him. I know I'm never going to see him again. I thank him privately for what he's done for me and our friendship we've had all these years. And we went to the funeral. My wife and I went to his funeral. And I remember at the funeral and all the kind of tributes that were done for him, there was one word that kept coming up over and over. And it was this word, decency. Decency. And yes, it was because he was such a decent man, but it was also because as a culture right now, look around at our political system, whatever side of politics you're on, decency is gone. And we need decency back again. We need heroes like George Washington. We need heroes like President Bush, men who are humble, men who don't say me, but who are humble and hardworking. And I think it's no coincidence that the two big biographies last year, when we looked at them, were about Neil Armstrong and Mr. Rogers, men who are hard workers and who are humble and who are decent. Decency needs to come back again. So I love the fact I got to share that book with him. It was I write about heroes all the time, but it was getting to read to one of my heroes.
Oh. That is an amazing story. Thank you for telling us. We'll be back with a little bit more right after this. Wow. This is some really exciting news. The wonderful books that Brad has created, along with his illustrator, which are fantastic, the I Am series and the Ordinary People Change the World, a PBS cartoon, a show? What's going on?
Yes, we are taking the Ordinary People Change the World series, and it will appear in cartoon form in November, on November 11th. It's called Xavier, Riddle, and the Secret Museum. And it's about a boy named Xavier, his sister, and their best friend Brad, the most handsome cartoon character you've ever seen, at least in my house. They gave me hair. They turned me into a cartoon character, but they gave me hair, so I'm very appreciative of that. And it's basically going to be a cartoon show, and what happens is they have a problem, like they're being bullied. They go back in time, they meet Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks teaches them how to deal with bullies. They come back and use those lessons. And every episode, just like the books, is a different hero with a different social, emotional lesson for your kids, to teach them kindness, to teach them compassion, to teach them how to be hard workers, to teach them how to just be good human beings again. And so Xavier, Riddle, and the Secret Museum debuts on PBS Kids on November 11th, 50 years and 1 day after Sesame Street premiered. No pressure on us.
I think you're definitely up for the challenge and will succeed without a doubt. And I mean, again, not to slam a lot of cartoons and things out there in cartoon world, but a lot of them deal with, things that don't give you that moral at the end of the story.
When I was 5 years old, Walt Disney and Jim Henson and Mr. Rogers taught me you could use your creativity to put good into this world. And that's all we're trying to do with the I Am books, is use our own creativity to put good into this world, to help you build that library for your grandkids out there, for your nieces, for your nephews. I love that people buy stacks of our books and donate them to their churches and their synagogues, or to their kids' classrooms and their grandkids' classrooms. And I think it's, I love the fact that people use our books to show that there's good in this world too. And that is the best reward we get.
There's nothing else we have to say. You just heard, that was the best way to sum it up. Amen. Can't wait to see you again the next time. Who's next?
I Am Leonardo da Vinci is next.
Okay, we'll have it. Thank you so much, Brad. We love spending time with you. We appreciate it. And we'll thank you for spending time with us on today's To The Point. If you'd like to make some comments about today's broadcast, go to WPTV.com, click on the To The Point page, and you'll send us a message in our To The Point section. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Sunday.